Zone Dragon X, who the favorites were.
KT Rolster.
Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen. We are back here at the Lal Park for LCK 2019 Spring. I am Valdez. With me is Papa Smithy. We're going to be jumping into a couple matches tonight. KT versus Jin Air, and then the spicy one, DAMWON Gaming up against Griffin later tonight.
We only have two undefeated teams. They will both be playing in our second series. Undefeated in best of one. Sandbox are 3-0 as well. Statements that we are now having to live with. This is the new norm we're in. Now, the new norm is KT Rolster are reigning champions with no match victories. Their easiest assignment, we must admit, in Jin Air GreenWings, who have been perhaps the most of the hapless team. And yet, when you're starting to think about percentages here, there's a real chance that KT Rolster do lose against Jin Air, because right now, we've just really seen very little from either of these sides.
Yeah, it's kind of a weird world where when you looked at KT Rolster's lineup, you looked at the top lane, you said they should be able to carry the bottom lane through some of the weaker matchups. And looking at their game up against Kingzone, I was expecting them to come in and win, actually, because Kingzone also struggling here in the beginning. But no, went the way of Kingzone, and now we have to think about where exactly does KT Rolster begin to rank. Do they sit at 7th? Do they go even lower? Questions still need to be answered here at the LCK. We'll have to wait and see also where Jin Air stands, because, of course, first week up against SKT, up against Griffin, you can't really blame them for losing the way they did. It's really hard opponents they went up against. But how about KT Rolster, who seems to be more on their level?
Well, right now, the standings are all over the place, but KT Rolster enter last. They will have played their 4th match at the end of today. And like we say, in free fall so far with their losses, can they actually avenge any of these previous losses and just find a match victory that they are desperate for, Valdez, in this match against Jin Air? I think Jin Air did roll over a bit against Griffin. You definitely saw the loss against Griffin was a little bit more one-sided than the loss against SKT. But even rosters for both of these teams, we've only seen a single game of Stitch and Nova. For KT Rolster, you could understand a lot of sweeping changes around, say, for example, Umti coming into the lineup, Kingen coming into the lineup after Smeb really struggled a couple of days ago. Very hard to know where these two teams are at. But let's focus on what we do know. The 100% pick ban champions, Lucian, Aatrox, Urgot, Cassio, and Rakan. Urgot finally doing some losing recently after being at one point 13-2.
Yeah, it was pretty ridiculous. He's still very strong. Don't get it wrong. He's still 16-8. Gets picked a lot because he's kind of in that 7th or 8th place in terms of champions. Doesn't quite make the ban list a lot of the time. But how about some more champions down? We look at Akali, Aurelia, really a ban so often, but the 2 times she's played, she has taken a loss. So kind of interesting there. First matchup, as we mentioned, KT versus Jin Air. Who will come out on top tonight?
That is a question that I thought I would have a clear answer on, but with KT's woes, you need to see it to believe it. You need to actually see them function as a 5-man unit. Speaking of 5-man units, we'll get the rosters to you very, very soon. KT Rolster is on a 10-match win streak against Jin Air. We're talking about history, and history seems to count less this season than ever before. Snowflower against his old lineup. Of course, Snowflower started on Rebels Anarchy, which became a Freak of Freaks, and was over with Teddy on Jin Air for a year in 2017. Back from the TCL, he's facing Jin Air GreenWings. He must have to hope that today is his first match victory on this KT lineup, because if not today, there really is no easier opposition in the future.
Yeah, at least that's the way it looks for now. As you mentioned, it's still early here, and history seems to be not repeating itself this time around. Lots of the big organizations that were on top in 2017, 2018 are now towards the bottom. We'll have to wait and see where this all lands, as we are about halfway through the second week. We're getting more of a taste here. And you guys can see the current team stats. KT Rolster tied for 9th because they did pick up that 3rd loss against Kingzone. Their stats, though, not sitting at 9th. At least they have a little bit better in terms of KDA and DPM. They're not getting blown out in the game that they're losing, but still have to perform much better to live up to the name that is KT Rolster.
Like you say, the name can sometimes be a blessing and a curse when you have the long legacy that KT Rolster does in multiple esports. Let's look over some highlights, but these are going to be short packages, and largely, of course, going to be in losing efforts.
This was kind of an interesting one, where Zenit, reading the Jinx, was able to get on in there, take him out. Nice play there with the Yasuo. Definitely feels at times like BDD is trying to 1v9 in this lineup. Something you don't say very often, but BDD coming into this one definitely is one of the big stars of KT. Hasn't been able to fully carry his team just yet.
And we thought for sure they would win this game. Game number 1, where they were ahead with a Yasuo teamfight comp in the mid game. It seemed like they had the execution advantage, but just didn't come together there. KT top side hasn't been able to carry hard enough, and while the bot side hasn't been an obvious drain on the team, hasn't been able to find too much there either. For Jin Air, it's going to be even more slight when it comes to the highlights. Only 2 matches, both of them stomps for SKT and Griffin respectively. Seconds of good moments, but they're going to want to string together more today when they hit the Rift.
Yeah, definitely need some more consistency. You'll notice in those 2 games, the first couple of highlights, it was first bloods on Takan both times. And if they could make that happen again and then actually transfer that into a mid-game and get something going, Jin Air would have a lot more success. But still waiting on that one. Let's take a look at the key player comparisons here. Look no further than the mid lane, especially for KT Rolster BDD. Some pretty good numbers, given that they still haven't won a series.
When it comes to BDD, though, we know this guy is super good individually. It's just how will he integrate into KT Rolster and the system they have set up at the moment? I'm not really sure on that one. I don't think KT is either, because they've had him on Lissandra duty, more of a utility mage. They've moved him over to hard carries, and neither has really panned out in terms of match victories, as we know so clearly. So I think right now, they have this weapon. To me, even though they mentioned Smeb as their franchise player, I think BDD is their true franchise player. I think this guy is around for a long time. Still very young, despite his already growing legacy. But wielding the power they have into game and match victories is something that has eluded KT. No big smiles on their faces, but during the pregame, we did hear them having some fun in the practice tool.
That they do. Snowflower, pretty loud guy. He made himself very obvious here in the studio. We'll see if he can do that here in the main games as we do get going. You mentioned no smiles, but even some somber looks on the faces of KT Rolster. Nothing to be happy about so far. Some of the stats we saw from the key players, BDD is first in kill participation at, I think it was 88.2%. And then actually the CS per minute for Grace was very high. He was second place in the LCK. I would assume that is for mid laners. But definitely some good stuff to look forward to from both of the mid laners here in this matchup.
Zenit going to be starting today. They've been interchanging between Zenit and Gango with no real understanding of who the preferred starter is. Speaking of preferred starters, we jump over to Jin Air GreenWings, and they will be returning to Root and Kellen. So no sign of Stitch and Nova. They've only played a single game out of the 4. Grace retains his spot. Chungo played a single game himself. Malrung, to me, who we see here, maybe short in stature, but he has been their best player by far, I think, in the LCK so far. Xinjiao was fantastic the couple of times we saw it. So can Jin Air actually put together a game plan and find an early game start? Because like you say, they've had some first bloods, they've had some good moments, but from there, kind of rolled over.
Yeah, and the funny thing to say is that this will be their best opportunity up against KT Rolster, the winners of LCK Summer 2018. Sounds funny to say, but definitely not on the right foot here. As KT will see if Jin Air can challenge them here tonight. Excited to see Malrung back in action on some aggressive junglers. Linderong also not looking half bad himself, but take a look at the KT Rolster lineup. As you mentioned, Zenit is back in the bot lane. I know some people are talking about the 80 carry role here for KT Rolster. I'm a personal fan of Zenit. Not sure how you feel, Papa.
I like the fact that Gango has some other picks, like, for example, the Draven that I think right now can be wielded. I'm actually more interested in the selection of Smeb and Score, because I think both these guys are a bit off the pace earlier in the week. Smeb especially just couldn't get the Akali going, seems to be struggling a little bit recently. I guess the glass half full analysis is they want to play themselves into form against Jin Air, but I wouldn't have actually minded seeing Kingen and Umti getting their first LCK games.
Would have to agree with you. We were wondering why Kingen came in that one time around, but I feel like we have a bit of a taste of that, as Smeb has not been performing very well, up to the level that people know him as, at least. Take a look here at Jin Air. Root and Kellen back in the lineup. Grace going to be looking to improve his 0.7 KDA this time around. It's hard when you face up against SKT. And Griffin, of course. Should be a fun one. I don't feel like this one is going to go 2-0 either way. But we'll have to wait and see if Jin Air shows up and what KT can bring to the table.
Champion priorities here are going to be very interesting for Jin Air, because it's been a long time since they've played. They're the last team to re-debut in week number 2, other than DAMWON Gaming, that will play later today. Go straight into it, patch 9.1, Galio the first ban. We finally saw Vayne versus Galio yesterday. There's all those tricky counters into it, but KT don't want to give any globals to the side of Jin Air.
You see the Rakan ban, some controversial changes on 9.2. He doesn't have a very grand entrance, it's more of a great entrance, I suppose you can call it. And we'll see if he remains as we do move into 9.2 eventually here, maybe next week or the week after. Akali also taken off the table here.
More often this week, though, champions like Aatrox are making it through. The Urgot has been first picked plenty of times. Where will KT's priorities be? They've played less Urgot than the other teams around. Smeb hasn't played it. One game for BDD. Scion ban does seem to lend credence to the idea of a first pick Urgot or Aatrox.
Certainly feels that way. Jin Air waiting on the last ban. And it is going to be Aurelia, as I mentioned, one of the most banned picks that we do have here. Only seen play twice, it lost both times. But this time, KT Rolster, given the opportunity, will jump onto the Urgot.
And they've prioritized Aatrox in place of Urgot in the past. They're going to take the Urgot, but Lucian Aatrox, a very tier list duo available to Jin Air. They can just snap up both if they want to. They flash the Lucian and go first with the Aatrox pick, and yes, they will be sticking tier list, it seems, in the first round.
I kind of like that idea, especially when you're struggling to find success. Just pick strong champions and work around that composition, make it happen. And let's see what KT is going to bring onto their side now. The Victor being flashed here, would assume that would be for Smeb.
Hasn't been played by KT so far this season. I actually think it might be played by Zenit in the bot lane.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Especially if the support matchup becomes tricky. It's very easy to just wave clear away as the Victor. I like it into Xayah Rakan, but teams aren't getting Xayah Rakan on patch 9.1 in Korea. And the Tahm Kench, actually the only champion Snowflowers won on this season You think of Snowflower as a Rakan main, as an engaged support, just like Tucson. With Tom Kench being the only effective win on the side, don't mind the priority this time for Snowflower.
Yeah, you know, when your team is 0-3, you've only had one game win. I don't blame them for just going back to what works and changing things up away from the norm here. The victory you mentioned also, very good to just farm up against the Lucian. You just shut down that lane. You say, I'm not going to trade with you. I'm just going to clear waves. And you have the safety of the Tomkins as well. So pretty good pick there.
I don't see any coverage bans from KT against the Urgot. Is something you can do. Jin Air, so far I've only played Aatrox in jungle, so it could be the pick for Malrang, but both sides have pretty big air of flexibility. Only the supports and most likely the Lucian are locked into their positions. Kha'Zix ban against Score. Urgot, sorry, not Urgot, Galio and Kha'Zix been a famous duo for KT in the past, and it is one of Score's highest win rate champions, so don't mind it as a ban. Should help for the skirmishing matchup for Malrang, who, like we mentioned in the opening, has been the most impressive performer so far on the side of KT Rolster.
Could up onto that Aatrox. We'll have to see what Jin Air wants to do there. Like the Lissandra ban, KT also just going along the tier list. Believe both Linderong and Grace can also pick up that pick. What will be their last ban will be the Rise.
Common pick,
after all that.
Common pick into Urgot and Aatrox, so in this case, just want to not have to deal with that champion. Jin Air, second round. Jungle might be overall fifth pick, because that would extend the flex of Linderong, or you can just go for the Xin Zhao, which is the strongest skirmishing jungler, at least of the champions we've seen so far in LCK Spring. So we'll just be the Xin Zhao here, so it's only a two-way flex for the Aatrox between solo lanes. Action onto KT. Need to reveal where this Victor is going in this round of the draft.
Yeah, which means that potentially Smeb would have to pick up a blind top laner if BDD is going to be jumping onto the Urgot. But look at this. LeBlanc is going to be flashed. We've seen some players have success on the LeBlanc. Lava comes to mind, and BDD going to have another shot at the LeBlanc as well.
Cool to see him on the LeBlanc. All the resident LeBlanc players are returning to it.
Oh, wow.
Jungle Karthus hover here. We know already played by a Freak of Freaks, and Score played plenty of this in solo queue. It is certainly not a skirmishing matchup into Xin Zhao. If Xin Zhao gets the drop, you just die. Hovering, extended hover here. Will they lock it in? I wonder, Valdez.
The answer's going to be no. They're going to pick up the Jax, actually, which has found some success here. And don't mind that at all. We've only seen one game of it, but looked pretty good. We'll see what Score can do on that pick.
It's against the OG Jungle Jax player as well in Malrang, who brought it to LCK in the past. By now hovering a Lulu. Not sure about these hovers we're seeing. The Karthus would have been very, very risky, and we already know that Jax against Hail of Blades can be very strong. So Hail of Blades Xin Zhao can't just burn you down with nothing more than a red smite. And we do see Lulu. It's going to be Lulu mid as a counter pick to LeBlanc. Last time I saw this in competitive was actually in the World's play-in matches. It was actually played in the play-ins. It was a one-sided loss for the Lulu, but it has historically been a very good matchup into LeBlanc. You need to be a significantly better LeBlanc player than the Lulu player, and there's a very real chance BDD might qualify for that. But all you want to do as Lulu is stifle the LeBlanc for the majority of the laning phase and put in trade damage and negate enemy damage with your shield.
And it kind of goes along the narrative we were saying about KT. The one player on the side of this team that has been performing was BDD. And now he goes on to a big-time carry champion. He's tried the Yasuo. This time it's going to be LeBlanc. And why not just throw your opponent's mid laner on a pick that can just negate it, essentially. Just put it to rest and say, no, you're not going to be available to carry. You're just going to get polymorphed in. Hopefully, Jin Air, for their own sake, they can kind of polymorph BDD and hopefully push him out of the game. That would be definitely one of the things I'd be talking about up against KT nowadays.
Polymorph has some pretty insane value against Jax as well, because remember, no consistent damage dealer on the side of KT. No 80 carry on this lineup, with Victor being flexed to the bot lane role. We got the rollouts on the enemy side. They have a Lucian, and the Jugger Lucian play was how SKT famously beat CJ in one of the best ever LCK series we had. That was the semi-final of Spring 2015. 4 years later, you can still put a lot of utility in a Lucian and have the Lucian hard carry you.
Here we go, guys. Game number 1 will start now. Hopping on to the Rift, KT versus Jin Air, KT on the blue side. Lots of fans actually showing up here. KT Rolster not going to lose any of their fans, of course, even if they go 0-9 in the first half. Don't think they will, but the fans wouldn't stop coming. Same for Jin Air. All the fans here in Korea, very, very loyal and faithful to their teams.
But does that loyalty extend to week number 6 if these two teams are both around the bottom? Yes, the Jin Air fans are veterans of suffering. Shout out to any Jin Air fans out there. Sorry about that, guys. The sad plane does reign supreme recently. But KT fans have always been around, in and around it. If you think about it, Valdez, the last time they really struggled to any degree was, again, Spring 2015, where they were off the pace, where they weren't a contender at all. Since then, they've always been a contender. They were finalists in summer of 2015, and then from there, always perennially 3rd, 4th, 2nd, or 1st. So right now, that's looking like it's not going to be the case. Let's draw our attention to the viewers for Score's secondary rune, and the Inspiration does have futures market for that faster first enchant. Now, will that enchant be the much more normal Cinderhulk or one of the other choices? Because Jax actually has 3 enchants you can consider. In solo queue, it's Devour, Trinity Force, full carry. Warrior enchant's decent on Jax as well, so we'll wait and see what the decision is there as Malrang level 2 on Xin Zhao, putting some doubt into Smeb's mind.
It seems very common nowadays. Start the red buff, go up to top side with the sweeper. As you mentioned, you just put the fear into the heart of the top laner. You always keep him guessing. And, well, you can double ward in that river. It looks like they might have some vision of Xin Zhao. Well, not quite, but they're going to ping him out anyway. They have a good idea of where he is. And let's see how aggressive they get with this. Grace pushing really hard in the mid lane, trying to get on in there and help Xin Zhao as he goes to try to take the second scuttle, and that Malrang will.
It's smart to always show Xin Zhao the respect the champion deserves. Although at level 2 you have Counter-Strike, it's a long cooldown. You don't want to risk losing camps. Xin Zhao has the ability to contest you at your enemy red, but also just take down the Scuttles. So Scuttles vacated 2-0 on that one. On the side of Jin Air is going to be very interesting to see the CS totals in mid lane. To me, Lulu is a lane counter pick to the LeBlanc and should be able to control the LeBlanc, but because of the nameplates and because this matchup isn't the most reliable, we do see sometimes LeBlanc just randomly bursting down Lulu again and again. Times have changed. Item breakpoints are at different moments as well, so let's learn a bit more about the matchup. For now, Grace showing a lot of respect in the mid lane.
Well, you get that speed up. You don't necessarily have to polymorph. You can just give yourself a bunch of speed, dodge the chains, but you still get electrocuted. You still sustain a ton of damage here, but doing a nice job of staying alive in that matchup. That's really what he's trying to do in this one, but this time he is going to get chained up. Not going to cleanse that one. Notice that he also has the cleanse.
And that's the part that's a bit surprising to me, because it's one thing to take a champion who's polymorph and shield, negate a lot of damage, but then also to go cleanse, it's ultra defensive. This is very much a pure shield rather than something that can track Lulu, the LeBlanc in a side lane, then teleport, ult the Lucian, and the rest is history. So this is very much about that as mid lane. BDD's got one spell, maybe.
Oh, there you go. Has the vision as well. Easy first blood. As Malrang flashes in for that one, BDD not able to get away as the pick works out for now.
Yeah, one spell, but maybe not one distortion, so no way out. He uses his summoner as well. Very nice gank timing from Malrang. We've already sung his praises. He's looked good on a lineup that's 0-4, and he finds another first blood to add to his collection.
Yeah, and as we mentioned, he picks up the first blood. He helps out his team, gets the push on in here for Grace, but Jin Air, after getting an early lead, need to do something with it. So we'll see if Malrang can begin on his carry. We'll take a look here at the replay. They have the vision on the distortion. They say, okay, we're just able to flash on into him, and there you go. First blood, coach is happy. Everybody on the side of Jin Air happy as well.
Not quite hooting and hollering like a Freak of Freaks yesterday, but At least going to be relieved to see a piece of good news for Jin Air. Malrang continues on his quest. He hasn't backed yet. He's just using his machete. Going to hit level 5. Pops the sweeper, and who knows if he might not be going for a second gank before his first back.
Well, you know he's going for this Scuttle Crab. Who's going to win the fight, though? We got items here on score, but he's down a level. Sees the Xin Zhao and still has to give him respect. That's the third Scuttle Crab that Xin Zhao Malrang here has picked up, so fantastic start for him.
Really vindicating the second round draft of double jungle ban into Xin Zhao power pick. Well played so far by Malrang, who is actually going to go Cinder Hulk on the Xin Zhao in this game. Barmy Cinder on the first back. He was the first to go Tank Jax, and I guess Tank Xin Zhao is something he's looking to go here. If you consider the team fights, you dive in as the Xin Zhao, and then you're plopped by a Chaos Storm, Urgot, LeBlanc, and Jax might just turn on you. So I don't mind this as an adaptation, because usually Warrior Enchant will at least get you a big advantage over the enemy jungler. Because it's Jax and his ability to negate your first 3-4 autos with a Counter-Strike, it's probably lower effectiveness than other matchups. And then with the 5v5 also in discussion, this is probably a pretty inspired flex from Malrang.
Yeah, I like the idea. I mean, if you're playing solo queue, go ahead, pick up the damage, go 5-0 in 15 minutes. But best you're going to do here in competitive play is just out-jungle the enemy jungler and get a first blood, you know, get a couple of kills, get your team rolling, and then you want to be somewhat of a, you know, damage dealer, a tank in the later game and not just be useless. So I like the pick as well on that item. We'll see if it works out for him.
It's definitely a don't try this at home, like you say in solo queue, but I think in most team comps, Xin Zhao gets more value than against specifically what KT has. So because of that, for this one game, we'll learn more about it and how deep into tankiness he goes. Malrang himself going deep into the enemy blue buff. CS not great for Grace, but is staying within 10, and this should just be a blue buff steal from Malrang.
So Malrang was spotted on the Ghost Portal. He was pinged a couple of times. Looks like KT knows about this, and they're just going to give it away. It's so much respect that has to be shown to that Xin Zhao. And just another way to shut down the LeBlanc, I suppose. You can take away that blue buff and shut down the harass onto the Lulu.
Lulu herself maxing Q, so focused on wave cure in the mid. Predictable, but something that we should always discuss. Right now, I've been unable to shove the lane, so lost a bit of CS's bot lane.
Zenit's like, no, spit me out. I wanted to continue the fight. Didn't look good in the beginning, but began to look better once the Chaos Storm came out.
Grace has awkwardly had the minion wave about where we're seeing it on screen, which is why LeBlanc has extended over a wave of minions advantage. Chain goes wide from B2D.
So hard to land it, but now there's no whimsy. There's the flash into the stun, and here comes the 3-man gank. Grace in a ton of trouble. It's just going to be ulted down, and in fact, BDD picks up the kill, so nicely done to come rotate to the mid lane and get BDD back on track.
You needed all 3 members to get through the summoners and also the ultimate from the Lulu, but not sure, Valdez, about the lane spacing here that's allowed BDD to always have some great avenues to call in reinforcements, to get some advantages, and to grow an increasing CS lead. Fall behind in CS enough, just like we saw in those Worlds play-ins. Moments like this can happen, and it's because on the left side of the screen, minion wave being frozen under the turret gives room for Smeb score and BDD to do their thing and get BDD, like you say, that welcome first blood. Well, first kill for KT.
Yeah. First blood for them. Feeling much better about that lane. Lulu's items are so funny here as well. To smirk treads into Catalyst, he just wants to not die. That's his only job. Just push lanes and not die. And have an ult for the late game. You already have Lucian, Aatrox, even Xin Zhao can deal the damage as the game goes on. Grace falling back into the support role. I suppose whatever it takes for their team to win.
And again, that part checks out. He already went cleanse Lulu, so he's going further into the I won't die. But just like with Summit against Khan, where Khan went for no Hex Core upgrade, I'll slowly build an Abyssal Mask, and died in the solo matchup. Problem here is, in the mid game, he's going to have Merc Treads. Let's call it a Rod of Ages, just because there's not a lot of magic damage synergy here, but maybe just a Abyssal Mask, we're not to know. But we'll say Rod of Ages, and then half of his third item You have no CDR in that build. You actually don't provide a lot of utility. You don't do a lot of damage because Lulu had a lot of her damage numbers nerfed over time. It's a real chance you don't do much of anything, Valdez, and that's why I'm not convinced with the build path or the cleanse choice here. But if he doesn't die, I guess he's at least doing something.
I believe that Lulu, along the years, you know, all the different compositions you could mix her in with as a support in the mid lane. You get that wild growth. You just are really good at handling the mid lane, doing a bunch of damage, fighting back, but also just supporting your team. Is that ultimate and that kind of support mid lane worth it anymore is a big question. Grace here, no cleanse, but is still able to sustain that damage. We'll have to wait and see, as now Malrang is going to be jumped upon here, but looking to fight back. Grace coming on in. The ultimate, he's going to ult himself, just trying to survive as BDD wanted to get on him, and now Malrang has to flash the second chains. Now we got Snowflower in a bit of trouble. 2-on-2, has the gray health here. Zenit trying to just push them back, but taking an immense amount of damage from Root. Is also going to back off the play, as it felt like KT won the first one, and then Jin Air won the second one.
Snowflower didn't have flash. He actually had exhaust heal at the time, so that's why it was a great time to turn on him and potentially burst him down. If Kellen had gone Rambo aggressive rather than backing off, there might have been kills there. Both of them exit at about 200 health on the side of KT. So it's a close one, like you mentioned. Malrang did go Hail of Blades. When we saw Clid in this matchup, he went Phase Rush just to maneuver around. Knew he couldn't actually take the 2v2. But the moment the score opens with the Counter-Strike, there is a chance to actually burn down. Nothing doing there. Grace backs off. We'll learn more as the game goes on, but right now it seems like just a feeling out phase for both KT Rolster and Jin Air.
Yeah, just a couple of kills to start this one off. I remember in the Kespa Cup, it was all about ultra aggression and trying to get that Rift Herald early on. You don't see that too often anymore. Actually, a lot of vision around the area, but it doesn't look like either jungler or a team is willing to make a big play before 14 minutes, before the plates come off. You can get that sweet 320 gold from the Rift Herald push into the turret. So interesting to see the decreased priority onto that objective.
I think it's also a sign the teams we're seeing play. No coincidence that Jin Air and KT at the bottom of the ladder. Saw some really nice charges pre-14 minutes yesterday. 3-man invade here. Kellen being brought in as a second reinforcement to Malrang.
Score totally seen on the ward is going to hop away, but they want to make sure that BDD does not have that mana sustain. But here we go, the rotation coming on in from the bottom side. Abyssal Voyage is available. Blue buff goes the way of Malrang. Here comes the TP from the bottom side. Abyssal Voyage on the top side as Zenit gets super low. In that fight, we got two going on at the same time. Stun onto BDD, but he gets away. Root also incredibly low. Also watch the top side here. Linderong gonna be put out of that ultimate, but Malrang jumping on in. Gets a big ultimate onto 3. Jin Air now S5 trying to jump away, but there's the double stun. Out of score, able to get 2 of them picked away. And Linderong has to run away with his tail between his legs. And there's the fight to KT. They should have the Rift Herald as well.
Took a long time for it to actually show through, Valdez, but the thing there is Root just kind of pinched himself. That was an 80 carry teleporting into Jax LeBlanc in basically melee range. You need to be going for defensive teleports, but I thought we were back to the summer meta of people playing competitive TP 80 carry for the first time and then just mismanaging how they understood the fight. As you watched out in the replay, you'll see that Jin Air just couldn't group their threats. They were just at the mercy of KT. Watch the replay here. It's an 80 carry teleporting into Jax with Counter-Strike up. No, don't do that. You can't cancel it, though, in the 2019 meta. Meanwhile, on the top side, Aatrox gives up his health bar for free. Not going to be able to kill him with the ultimate there, of course. But the moment he gets up, after the passive revive, Jin Air are 5 members, but BD on one side, KT with the ability to re-engage on the top. All of that because I think Root was just far too disregarding of the map positioning of KT there and ended up just making it a lose-lose scenario.
Ultra aggressive, way too confident, and it comes back to bite them in the butt. So they'll have to take a step back now after losing that objective and a couple of kills. You also notice a bunch of the upfront damage from Jin Air had to be turned on to BDD, who's LeBlanc. So he gets the distortion away. He's just totally fine. And then they're able to turn it around. And here comes the Rift Herald. Shelly how you doing? Coming into the mid lane, Malrong actually going to get stunned up here as there's the visual bug into turret damage. Not going to be able to get the turret though, as Jin Air does rotate to make sure they can keep it up, but at the same time, they're losing a bunch of health on their bottom lane turret.
KT running Jin Air's duo lane around the map to plenty of turret health lead. Like you say, not to turret plates because we're at 15 minutes, not to turret destruction, no first turret taken at 15 minutes. One of the slower timings we've seen so far in Spring, but shows you that right now we're seeing a Xin Zhao Lulu duo in defensive macro mode rather than the offensive macro mode you'd want from these. Cinderhulk done and second Ruby Crystal in. Actually, the Lulu had to sell Amp Tome to finish the Rod of Ages at an early enough timing. 26 minutes till that's ready. That's a lot of members of KT.
Nice ult by Malrong to try to save Grace. He might be able to. There's the ultimate from Urgot, but coming in from the bottom side is Root and Kellen. Another big fight coming in here as the Urgot in a ton of trouble as Zenit goes down too. Linderong is going to be totally fine on the Aatrox. And here comes Jin Air. They want to fight back as Snowflower down to the gray health. Can they finish him off under the turret? Doesn't look like it, but Jin Air able to strike back in the next fight.
KT just too tricky this time. The first time it was about Jin Air's poor entrance into the fight. This time KT turned on and not able to actually get the same separation they pulled off in the first skirmish of the game. They pushed through mid. They want the first turret blood, but right now KT do have LeBlanc up.
They're just trying to clear the waves as best as they can, but can't really do it effectively. Down goes the first turret to the side of Jin Air.
And the game, just like the standings, pretty even after this one. We'll watch the replay to understand it. Zenit and Snowflower come to try to herd away Jin Air, but they go down. Like you say, Malrong disengages pretty well to begin this. Grace is out of the fight, Malrong's out of the fight, but Smeb walks in alone, and the only person who really has a relevant power spike at this point is Root, who just gets to free hit onto Smeb. They back up, and Linderong captures Victor in transition. So KT, the first idea is good, but because of the disengage, they also chase in too deep and get turned on by Jin Air.
And one thing that I've been kind of driven mad by so far in this game is Zenit's positioning on the Victor. He's been in melee range once of the Lucian, this time of the Aatrox, and he gets absolutely blown up. He probably is saying to himself, hey, I got Tom Kench right behind me, I should be fine, but then he gets two-shot by Aatrox because he's Victor and not really handling that situation too well. So we'll see if he can turn that around as the game goes along.
It's Zenit's first ever game of Awesome Dude, I believe. He's only played a handful in previous years in Challengers before the Awesome Dude meta, and he has not played a non-AD carry this season. Again, Gango is actually their player, formerly Sketch, who's most well-known for playing a lot of the mages in the bot lane. So positioning on mage is very, very different, like you mentioned, Valdez, and right now seems to be growing into his role. A lot of KTR, whether veteran or new player, Jin Air have control over this Drake. None taken so far. 18 minutes, very, very late first Drake if we finally do see it. But the moment the Root can combo a second item here, finish the Black Cleaver, I think KT have to be very on point about how they enter a fight and not just rely on Urgot in the backline.
Hasn't worked out for them so far. And it does feel like both of these teams are not willing to give up the Drake as it's 5-on-5 in the bottom side towards this Cloud Drake. Scuttle here is taken, and Zenit in a lot of trouble once again, has to flash away. There is the Devour, and now Linderong once again distracting the rest of the team as Snowflower and Zenit are going to go down towards that Cloud Drake. Just kind of out of position. Nice clamp down there by Jin Air. BDD, he's trying desperately. He wants it so bad, but only one kill on the support will go the way of the LeBlanc.
But it happens again, Valdez. Feels like bot lane and the rest of the map are not on the same communication level. They just get taken down. This time Zenit had flash, but nowhere safe to flash to, and Tom Kench easy to go down to. If you have Aatrox in the backline, he's got the revive. He's able to buy time, but he might be dead anyway.
BDD has so much damage, is able to distort away from that one. There is the stun. BDD will pick up that kill on the backside.
Bit of a lone hand, though. Only one kill has gone to a member of KT other than BDD. Had to flash and ignite there. Had to flash away from the third Q that would have killed him. Just watch the replay here. Zenit starts poking and then realizes he's basically dead instantly. Xin in the front line, no answer to it. They turn on to Aatrox. That's all KT can do. But unlike Smeb, who falls in this scenario in the previous fight, not possible to take down Linderung at the start, and all that BD can do is mop up some kills after the mess that was laid in the start of the fight.
Kind of a weird and wonky game so far. Still only the one turret in the mid lane has gone down. Only one Drake as well. Feels like both of these teams really struggling to get their macro play underway. We'll have to wait and see if BDD on the LeBlanc can carry. He's pretty insanely fed at this time. 700 gold bounty as well. 4-1-1 and 9 stacks on the Dark Seal. If you want to look for a carry, a hope for KT, this would be the guy to look for.
And Lulu really can't side lane against this LeBlanc. No teleport, no magic resist other than the Merc Treads. Seems to just be going for some utility. As a second item here, I assume Ardent Sensor is going to be completed to buff up to item root very shortly, but does really diminish any chances of matching in the side lane, especially when you hit level 16 on LeBlanc. You QR the Lulu, she has half health. You wait for your cooldown in about 10 seconds, and then all Lulu can do is vacate the lane.
Linderung kind of given a free lane to take out that one turret, as actually Smeb is in the mid lane. Everybody from KT, 5 members now. They want to take out this turret, and they want to fight right now, 5-on-5. No split pushing with the LeBlanc just yet. They want the objective first, and they will, after all, get it at the end of the day.
Super greedy for the global gold, but they'll take whatever they can get. Second turret, and making it even in that particular objective. We back away here, and we wait to see whether either of these teams, again, no match wins between the two, can actually set up for a meaningful mid-game objective. The mid-game is upon us, and right now the ward lines from both teams are a bit anemic. Some set up around the Baron, but not a realistic objective yet for the side of Jin Air. And because they just picked up so few objectives between the two of them, the game plan of how do we take a decent early game into winning the game is not really something that can be tested by either Jin Air or KT in the 5 best-of-3s they've played. So we'll be learning about mid-game macro when not far behind for both these teams right now.
You mentioned the vision on the map. KT's only wards are really down by the dragon, and it's still a minute and a half until an Ocean Drake spawns, so not really a big priority there. They'd love to reposition some of those control wards up towards the Baron. There comes a TP from Root. Don't think they're going to start the Baron or do anything like that. Just wants to get back into the play on the Lucian. Has those 2 items you were talking about. Play the Rune King and the Black Cleaver. Feeling pretty good so far.
And it does feel like we already kind of know the dichotomy of these two teams, and it reminds me of the Afrika versus Gen G series yesterday, where Keen versus Ruler was the matchup. Right now, it's actually Root versus BDD, because Root has 2 items and an Ardent Sensor with a Lulu. So that's actually pretty much just roll up, Jugger Lucian style, and have a really big frontlining impact. But LeBlanc has 2 items herself, and is pretty good at feasting on 80 carries if their positioning is not ultra defensive. So I feel like if Root goes down or if BDD goes down, we got the spoiler on who wins the mid-game team fights.
Lots of burst damage can come from the side of KT. You got the Victor and the LeBlanc that can just plop down their abilities onto you. So Root still has to be careful, even if he does have the Lulu behind him. BDD really wants to get in there. Kind of a wonky one, but just takes a little bit of damage. It's going to be totally fine on the backside. Just wants to abuse Grace as much as possible in the lane.
KT want to cement the vision they had bot side, but those control wards, most of them were removed. Like you say, it's an Ocean Drake, but I think Jin Air should be fighting as we see them opening up with the culling. Again, this Lucian is really big. You can add items to the Lucian build, but he's never relatively more powerful than he is right now at 24 minutes. So given the timer, I think they should be fighting, and they seem to agree.
They want the fights. Forced Wild Growth onto Grace just to make sure that he does survive up on the top side. So if we do have a fight here that does end up being a 5-on-5, They would love to have that cooldown, but it doesn't look like either team wants to go for that fight just yet. Jin Air would like an Ocean Drake, and KT say, sure, let them have it. We'll take a turret up in the top side and some vision around the Baron. They don't really care about this Ocean Drake right now.
Grace just won't be able to side lane against LeBlanc. Don't agree with the summoner or even the item build here, and he gave up pretty early. We're going for the Ardent Sensor and being much more about the team fight, so it's always a bit inevitable, so Jin Air will say, at least we get an objective on the backside, even if it was the Ocean Drake.
You get something, you see assistance pings around the Baron now. They would love to retake some of that vision and consider it. Do have a decent amount with the Lucian of Baron damage, Aatrox and Zhao, but they can't really go ahead and force that.
It's certainly better than KT's Baron, which is epically slow.
Yeah.
They don't have an 80 carry. The Jax doesn't have any real damage items finished just yet, so KT are about Baron turn, and even then their Baron turn isn't great. They're much more about 1-3-1 and getting picks in the enemy jungle. That's what a team comp like this does best. In a pure team fight sense, they have little to no initiation as well, so that's the kind of awkward part of teaming the Victor with Urgot, LeBlanc as solo lanes. They really do want BDD to be a raid boss in the side lane and make it so there is no good side lane matchup, because if that doesn't happen, KT kind of at the whim of what Jin Air decide to do and having to outplay them at Jin Air's game of choice.
You see the pushing of BDD on the top side. LeBlanc not the best at clearing waves. Can try to do it decently fast. It's much better at level 16, but still, after that, not that fantastic. We'll see if Jin Air can force another fight, as it looks like they want to get on in here. Kellen running straight at them. Zenit is going to be devoured on up.
They can see LeBlanc, so they're happy to go in. They know they're stronger if LeBlanc isn't grouped.
Just forcefully taking the region, essentially. 5-on-3 saying, okay, Baron Pit is ours. Baron Vision also ours, but push in the top side and the bot side does continue from Smeb and BDD. KT still have that 1-3-1 going pretty strong.
Yeah, definitely sticking with that. Smeb looking for a flank. Not on Cannon this time on the Urgot, though. First Urgot of the season for him. No defensive vision for the side lane pushing, because they haven't been able to invade and put down wards in either the red or blue side jungle of Jin Air. KT desperately need to do this, but so far it's only just a single control ward from Snowflower. Snowflower score. That's probably the duo that needs to be putting down. I want to see them light up either the red side jungle or the blue side. You prefer red side so that you have at least some implied Baron threat, but I think the blue side jungle is probably the easier two, and the Urgot's doing just fine in the Aatrox matchup. But with no vision, it just means this game is likely to drag on a bit, Valdez.
Isn't that the way it goes between a couple of the lower level teams here in the LCK? It's funny to say that about KT. They want to prove me wrong here, getting on top of Kellen. Nice amount of damage there. And he get popped. The stopwatch comes in, and here's the Root nearly actually takes out BDD on the backside. Now Balrog getting on in there. Score in a little bit of trouble. Is going to have to hop away, and there he goes. Down goes the Victor on the left side. As he went a little bit too close to the sun, and Root finally doing his job.
And finally we see Lucian Lulu as a duo, and LeBlanc doesn't matter. She's already out of the fight. They're able to go through the mid. It requires the flash from Root, but it gets the only kill of that extended team fight. Seems like both teams are backing away. Jin Air don't feel strong enough to actually leash the Baron.
They're just going to sit in here and try to bait it for now, but second you see the Lucian, you know it's not happening, and that's just going to be it. It's just going to be the one kill that does go the way of Jin Air here. Let's take a look at how this happened.
Call is made, you assume by BDD with his on the way ping on the top side saying we've got a flank opportunity here, and they absolutely do. Balrog just gives up on the walls and comes in. Kellen flashes away from what would have killed him in the Chaos Storm. But watch how much damage Root does when he finally gets to open up. He gets the Lulu utility, he turns on to Zenit, Zenit dies in half a second. That is what Lucian and Lulu have always done as a duo, and that's with them starting off on the retreat and only at the end getting to open up.
Can't really blame Zenit either. In that one, he was doing the lasers from afar, but Unfortunately, when you get flashed on and you don't have anyone to help you out, the Devourer is actually used on BDD to save him from the culling away from Root. So Root essentially doing his own job to make the kill happen in the first place. So props to him. Looking good so far. We'll see if he can continue it. He's picked up a Maw, actually, as his third item. Wants to deal with BDD and Zenit and all their magic damage.
What does it tell you that he wants to do? It tells you that he is going to frontline. It will be the Juggerlution, and I was kind of saying that because people remember it as a term. Juggermore, of course, very famous, but originally you say in the early game especially, well, Aatrox and Xin will be the front. It's not actually a Jugger composition. If you're going more of Malmortius Lucian with this Lulu, you are frontlining. So that's going to be super fun to watch, and that's what Lulu and Lucian could do. It allowed Lucian to use every Relentless Pursue for attack canceling, for the maximizing of damage rather than defensive positioning. Seeing the opening up here, do notice that Lulu is not grouped. She was dealing with LeBlanc. LeBlanc's going to get there first.
Trying to hop on into Kellen now. Root is going to get exhausted, but still doing a lot of damage. In goes Linderong, trying to pop him, but here's BDD into the back line. Is able to get one. Chains go on to the Aatrox. He's forced to retreat as well. And this time around, the fight will go the way of KT as the stun comes in and they are able to disengage.
With LeBlanc there first, they win the fight, but notice this, Valdez. They can't actually start the Drake because Lulu finally joins, and it gets more tricky. Scores over the wall. They're going to try. Jin Air's not grouped.
Oh boy, BDD does a nice chunk of damage to Root, and there's the TP into the backside by Smeb. Is able to take out Malrong. And now on the re-engage, KT actually able to take away this Cloud Drake.
Big mistake on the map read there. Even though they have a ward on the walls, they think that KT is fully given up and won't be contesting for this objective. But actually, we knew score was over the wall. That meant that Malrong was out of position, that Lulu went back to mid lane too early. Unfortunately, that was the 10th place scenario coming to life because the start of this fight is very even. It's being won by Jin Air, but in the 4v4 they're winning. The 5v4 is what happens at the end. BD comes in, gets the only kill, adds to his kill score. Hard to say if Lulu should still be side laning against the LeBlanc at this point in the game. My first thought is no, but then they just think that KT's out when we know, with the teleport being invested and score being over the wall, that KT wanted more.
They do get a couple of more. They take out Balrong and Kellen in total in the fight here. I know some of those members that needed the scaling are beginning to get even stronger. Urgot's getting to that insane tanky phase. He can tank a lot of the culling in the front line against the Lucian if they do fight front to back. And also now Jax is picking up some items, has the Trinity Force, and does have the beginnings of Asterix. So we'll see if he can make it up to that 3-item phase. The Jax beginning to get stronger and stronger.
So let's talk about this game from Jin Air's perspective, because I've already said I think they have the agency about what happens here, given that KT have basically no engage.
Here he comes.
Moments like this are pretty good for them, just rushing in, and that's why you see Snowflower pop the heal for movement speed easily. The only thing KT can do to force Jin Air is specifically BDD side laning, but like you said, not the most turret threat on a LeBlanc. The way you stop BDD from splitting you in a 4-1 and forcing you to respond the entire time is you put down multiple control wards around Baron. They've done that, and you start it. You need to start the Baron and actually force the enemy to come to you. Otherwise, Root might just be caught.
Oh, he's going to be flashed on too. Has to flash himself to get away. Has the tankiness from his items and the help of the Lulu and the Braum, but still can't get caught out like that. It's going to give the confidence to KT to begin their push.
Watching the siege here, Linderong's on the side.
Balrog just going face first into the Urgot. And KT, in fact, are going to respect that. They're just going to back away for now. BDD wants a little bit more, but has that popped and has to back away.
Oh, it's so frustrating watching this game because Jin Air are getting run around, and they shouldn't be. They should know that they're actually in a really good spot to force KT into a bad scenario. But first BDD splits, and Jin Air seems indecisive. They put down Baron Vision but don't start it. And then Lulu says, I guess I need to pick up these minions. And then BDD comes to gank because, of course, Lulu's not in position. And no longer can Lucian be a frontliner. So in both ways, Jin Air kind of losing the maximum when they should be set up to do some really good things. KT continue the ring around the Rosie, but not to any objectives. And this time, not to any kills.
say the LeBlanc doesn't have the best wave clear, but once you get that fancy hat and you still have 10 stacks, you're going to begin to just one-shot the waves and put some pressure onto those lanes. Finally, who's going to be the guy that stops the LeBlanc, or will they finally start the Baron? Pay attention to the next chapter to find out, guys, because it feels like we need some more time for Jin Air to build up that confidence and actually start the objective.
Jin Air are officially the reverse Sandbox. And I'm not talking about their scoreline, it's the fact that they will never go near Baron after Sandbox is our most willing
They're so
Baron
scared
team.
of it.
Like, it does damage. Ah!
It's the first time someone's been in the pit right there when Root stepped in.
Because they've got the counter to LeBlanc. It's whimsy. That's exactly the thing. You polymorph with that ability. You don't have to use it for movement speed.
Oh,
Here's
boy.
the fight.
Root going to get stunned on the backside, but does have an insane amount of tankiness within this composition. Is going to be okay, but Smeb in a good position to begin pushing down this turret.
Back is coming from the Lulu. Wants to back away. Hopefully a big purchase coming here. Been sitting on Lost Chapter and Neil's Large Rod for quite a while. And will be Ludens for some extra CDR. Finally getting CDR into the build to get a second shield or a second Q off in a team fight. Smeb takes away blue, but Lulu's not going to be very mana gated at this point in the game with a Lost Chapter item. He backs away considering his options. No teleport on Smeb. TP advantage and Baron Pit can be controlled so easily. They just walk up there on the side of Jin Air. It's another time for that B word, the Baron, to be their focus, but instead we're watching the side lane.
You have a lot of words, Papa Smithy. The B word, the S word. Bringing them all into the cast here. How about the E word, the Elder Drake? It feels like we are not past 30 minutes, but we actually are, as the game has been dragging on. And Malrang, oh boy, he's nearly going to go down. As an Ignite ticket, he's just going to die after the stopwatch, as finally BDD can begin to one rotation some of these champions.
So he doesn't have to dive after the AD carry. Like you say, not everyone can have the same magic resist stacking. Wild Growth was supposed to be used onto Malrang, but actually used on Kellen because the stopwatch was invested. They're not going to start the Baron here. This is what you want to do to at least put an idea into KT's mind, but they're not going to stick on it. They've only got 4 members, and they will be spotted on vision.
Yeah, they put the idea into the minds of KT and immediately snatched it away, saying, no, just kidding. We're not going to start it and score. Going to essentially just solo down the Elder Drake. And now KT finally look like they have a chance to push this game in their pocket as they do take the lead in this one.
I think they should just make the game about Baron. They haven't been able to in the previous parts, but now with the Elder, they have the buff, and they say, Jin Air, if you want to stop us, you got to fight against us with Elder.
Smeb from behind with that Righteous Glory is going to be kind of awkward on the backside. Grace taking a bunch of damage as Smeb not ready to engage just yet. The Baron started and stopped. KT also not ready to take it just yet. As okay, Smeb going to be engaged upon this. Might be their time to go on in. Unfortunately, the Braum abilities do get missed. And unfortunately, no stun does come in. So the Devourer gets in there, trying to blow up Root this time around, but the shields are there to keep him alive.
As over 100 magic resist and Lulu grouped, so is able to push up. What's Jin Air's next move going to be? Again, they have to find a way to get some control on the map. Right now, they put down a single control ward. They don't feel strong enough to actually face check the pit. So a couple of backs are granted the side of KT. Look at all the armor that's been stacked by Smeb. Has the Thorn Mail, Adaptive Helm, and also further armor on top of that. KT teleport back in. Couple of sweet hats done. Jin Air can't afford to get picked, but the pick damage is getting pretty crazy.
Well, we're going to reset here at 38.5 minutes as BDD returns to the side lane. Has the blue buff now, so actually does have a lot of ways to just continuously clear that wave up on the top side. Still looking for Root here, but can't quite grab him on the mid lane. When will KT actually build up the courage to start this Baron? They're running out of time with their Elder buff. There's only 30 seconds, and BDD is backing, so it's not going to be anytime soon.
Baron damage, like we said, pretty low on the side of KT. So it seems like right now they're not going to do that unless they're in an outnumbered scenario. Jin Air going as 5. Well, it's 4 in Lulu, but you get my point. Trying to clear out the vision. they just feel very defeated in terms of how they're positioning on the map. Super defensively, and gold lead 6,000. Lucian's strongest part of the game has been kind of evacuated without any advantages onto the side of Jin Air, and yet you still feel like Jin Air can battle back in this game. It's not impossible. We've seen KT lose from what was a very winnable scenario against Kingzone in that previous series. They still don't have an AD carry. They are still very much about burst.
2 hats for the side of KT now, as Victor also has the Rabadons completed. The game is far enough along that a lot of the members on the map have nearly completed their full item builds. A lot of flanking attempts here from KT. See Smab on the right side now. Score trying to do that and protect BDD in the top lane push, but still no turret, and now it's BDD and Score up against Grace, not quite able to burst him down. In comes Linderong. They're going to try to go for the fight, but Score is going to respect it and flash away.
Root clearing in the mid lane. Just about vision. There's really little new happening in this game. I'd love to give you more insight, but it's just a lot of Jin Air already feeling that they are looking for a KT mistake, and KT fishing but not being able to actually cement a kill. That would mean Baron could be started. Here's Smeb fishing.
Trying to get on top of Root here. That's the big objective. He gets pretty low, but will survive. And they're not willing to dive that one, especially with the TP coming in, so Root is going to be saved, although he is pretty low.
A lot of summoners down. Grace's ult down for a couple more seconds. Is now the time for KT to look for more. They're thinking about it. They're considering, are we going to start the Baron? Are we going to defend the mid lane push? Caught between a couple of different decisions, and do notice that Wild Growth is available again.
Here comes the flank again. This time Score going one-on-one onto Malrong. Not able to jump on in, and Root beginning to frontline there against the Jax with no counter, and there he goes in. Kellen gonna be picked away by BDD on the top side, and Root is just gonna be pulled into his death as finally they're able to get the play onto the big carry of Jin Air, and now KT will finally go towards the Baron.
Those were the picks they were looking for, especially Root going down to the Fear Beyond Death. Try again was what KT had to do with the team comp they had. They get over the team comp hump with a couple of nice picks, and this should be a quick Baron to the side of KT.
After all, no distractions here in the Baron pit. Takes a bit long, but they make it happen. BDD picks up another kill for himself, now 6-1-4. Let's take another look at how Root gets caught on the front side.
In the mid-game, you're just making about the Jugger Lucian, but how many times have we seen Wild Growth used on Lucian? It always has to be used to save someone who goes a bit too far. This time it's the support. From Q accuracy has been off, and positioning in moments like that been off as well. Able to chase and get that second kill here. Just nothing's coming together. It's not jiving, and it feels like Jin Air have selected a mid-game comp, not really known how to pilot in the mid-game, and now it's coming to the point where KT have enough items to just throw their face at Jin Air again and again, and eventually pick up a Baron, and you'd assume the game after too much more time.
Yeah, we're getting there eventually. Double Void Staff now on the side of Zenit and BDD, as in fact the Victor had the most damage in that last team fight. A lot of that was just dumping everything he had onto the frontlining Lucian and eventually getting the job done with the help of his friend Urgot. They get the pick, and they get the Baron, and the push will come in, and nobody on the side of Jin Air is strong enough to go up against BDD.
Now Score can be a side laner as well. See Jax on the top side taking down inner turrets with the Baron buff. I believe he has a Trinity Force too, but I might be telling you a lie. So able to have plenty of threat. He can even solo down carries. So speaking of soloing down carries.
That's why nobody can really side lane against BDD. Thankfully, he doesn't have blue buff, but it's not going to matter as KT Rolster is going to push 3 inhibitors. Maybe rotate it into a, well, 2 inhibitors into a third one, perhaps. But in fact, Linderong pretty tanky himself with his own Guardian Angel on the top side. They'll stop at 2 as KT up about 10,000 gold. Feeling pretty good about this game.
Definitely agree, Valdez. I think they got this one in the bag at this point. It took a long time to come together, and it required a lot of inaction from Jin Air that I don't think other teams would have been guilty of in the LCK. This would be the second Elder, remember? The stacking buff is still there on patch 9.1.
Oh boy. Kellen getting lasered down as now Zenit. He wants to be the frontliner as well. They're going to back off of that. Elder, there's the 4-man stun from Score as he gets into the back line. And here is Smeb. It's going to be a total rout of a fight this time around. Double kill on the side of KT. Linderong has to be killed 3 times as he is the Guardian Angel Aatrox, but they're not even going to bother. They're just going to push in and finally take game number 1.
Finally, the game will end. 45 minutes it took. KT Rolster gave themselves a tricky one with a draft that made it hard for them to actually grow a lead. They just waited and waited, and Jin Air, unfortunately, they return to their old game plan. They wait alongside KT. They couldn't afford to do that, and it doesn't matter how big Lucian was, KT Rolster will take game number 1.
Took a little while, but eventually BDD and friends were able to take out the enemy team. It's kind of what it feels like on the side of KT Rolster. The LeBlanc pick definitely working for BDD, and the counters that Jin Air brought into the game not showing up to the same level. Little pat on the back of Zenit, who had a rough early game, but eventually turned it around on the Victor. We'll see if KT can build some confidence after finally taking another win here in the LCK.
And I think they have to be glass half full about that game. If this is KT on a 3-game win streak, then you're like, okay, a lot of things to work on here. Unsure if we were playing it out correctly. When you have no wins, then it's just, we won a game, guys. Let's feel good about that. So hopefully they can parlay that into more confidence into game number 2. When it comes to Jin Air, I think you just need to change your ideology. We weren't sure about the Lulu, even though it's historically been a good matchup into the LeBlanc. We saw the cleanse and got worried, and they just never grouped and tried to make something happen. They grouped and backed away whenever BDD decided, almost like BDD was deciding whether Jin Air was going to group or whether they were going to go into a 4-1 territory. That meant that when the Lucian was the strongest, they weren't getting any value out of it. And by the end, any mistakes would be a LeBlanc or Victor pick, and the game goes the way of KT.
Yeah, nice, interesting pick and ban there as well. It kind of felt like KT Rolster did want to bring in the LeBlanc from the beginning. They banned out the Galio as well, first ban in that one. But we're going to take a look at the MVP. I wonder who it's going to be. Would have to give that one to BDD myself.
We'll go over the stats now. The MVP comes in that later part of the show. But yes, I think BDD are going to pick it up very obviously here. The numbers will be interesting just because the game felt eerily even though the gold lead was about 5,000 or 6,000 to the side of KT. I was still waiting for, where is that frontline Lucian? He does a lot of damage here, 27,800, almost 40,000 for Victor, but 40,000 for Victor with his ability to poke frontlines, like you say, that's one thing. Over 30,000 for a LeBlanc is actually a really big damage total on the side of KT. For a 45-minute game, for about 25 minutes, the game was no significant gold lead either way. It only got extended around the 28 to 30-minute mark, and eventually, KT proved just too good.
That they did. It took a while. I wouldn't say watching that game that I'm very confident that KT are going to be stomping teams as they continue here in the LCK. I'm going to need to see something a little bit better than that, Papa. But we'll have to wait and see what they do bring into game 2.
After the break, will we see a big change in drafts from either team? There's good reasons and good arguments for yes.
Now we'll have to wait and see, guys. So join us after a quick commercial break. We'll be back with game number 2.
20살, 그것은 치열한 전투. 우리를 억압하는 모든 것으로부터 우리 자신을 지켜낼 뜨거운 혈투. 그게 바로 20살 우리의 캐리, 우리의 버프. 우리 은행이 내일보다 더 빛날 20살 우리의 오늘을 응원합니다.
This is for those who dare to stand up, for those who dare to make a difference. Get ready for battle and join the Republic of Gamers.
이 혹독한 훈련에서 살아남은 의자만이 CDG의 의자가 되니까. 때론 지나친 고집이 정말 좋은 것을 만드니까 의자가 인생을 바꾼다.
CDG.
Welcome back, everybody. We are here after the break. BDD understandably picking up the MVP from game number 1. The LeBlanc looking pretty scary there in that one, even though the game overall was kind of dragged along. BDD and Club was finally able to take it in a 1-0 victory for KT.
It was a really tricky game to actually make it all about LeBlanc. LeBlanc had to be both the 1 and the 4-1 split push and also find